Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're about to get started, and we want to say hello to you from the Patterson Foundation and welcome to our relaunch of the Suncoast Digital Connect webinar series. It's a Learning Thursday webinar series. This is the first of 4 that we have planned for the remainder of this year. So we hope that you will enjoy today's session and then sign up for our October, November, and December session. I'm Sherry Corrier with the Patterson Foundation. We're so thrilled to have you here. Just a few housekeeping ideas before we introduce our team. We're recording this, and that is because we want to share that back out with you in case there are other nuggets that you'd like to follow up on. It'll come out in an email. We want to say hello to our team. This is the great DA4A team. A lot of folks behind the scenes here making this possible and continuing to provide important content in the digital access world. Also, we'd like to share a little bit about the Patterson Foundation and the Digital Access for All initiative. The Patterson Foundation here in Sarasota, Florida, but serving a 4-county area, Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte, and DeSoto counties here in Florida, created the Digital Access for All initiative in June of 2020. It was an effort to bring multiple sectors together to work to enhance access to technology for all people. If you remember things that were happening at that time, it was kind of a difficult period. We also allow in these series for more time to connect, and we've made some adjustments for meaningful sharing based on our prior Digital Connect series, where people asked for a little bit more time for Q&A. Folks wanted to be able to answer questions, have a discussion with our presenter. And so today we are definitely providing that. So I'm very thrilled to get right down to business today and to let everybody know that we have a wonderful presenter today, all the way from Massachusetts. We also will be talking a little bit about Kathy here. Kathy, welcome. Kathy Bisbee. As you can see here, a more detailed bio that you'll also get in your email. Kathy is a facilitative leader. She's worked collaboratively in rural, suburban, and urban communities, and to ensure that everyone has access, devices, and skills, which is right in the same line with the Digital Access for All initiative. She's also a network weaver, serving as the director of the Alliance for Digital Equity. Kathy is going to provide you with a very detailed way that the coalition of 100 or more organizations have come together and Western Massachusetts and provided this equity and inclusion through the Bay State Health. So with her Alliance team, she also has designed a regional digital navigator network. And we're excited to hear about that too, as that is one of the focuses here with Digital Access for All. So without further ado, Kathy, we'd love to bring you on and welcome you to the first webinar series of our new remake. And we would love to have you share with our audience all of your knowledge. And everyone, we want you to stay on. After Kathy's presentation, we'll be coming back with some questions and answers, but also we're going to be taking a photo of that time of the whole entire group. So thank you, everyone. Kathy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sherry. And I just want to thank all of you, especially the Patterson Foundation team. You've been incredible to work with, and I'm just really honored to have been invited. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's joining us today for your attention and interest in the work that we're doing. I saw a sign on the way into the building where I'm using a podcast studio today at a community access, public access television station. And the sign said, "Nothing great is made alone." And I thought that was just so serendipitous for this, because one of the things I talked to the Patterson Foundation team about, they said every digital, yes, I can see the PowerPoint. Thank you so much. Every digital access movement initiative needs a champion. And I said, I'm going to push back on that because it needs a village of champions. It really does. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. is our village of champions, our regional village. So I'm going to start with the premise that digital equity is a super social determinant of health and is essential for advancing quality of life and for full participation in civic life. You can go to the next slide. The slide is, oh, there we go. Thank you. So the Alliance is a coalition of, we're actually up to 200 organizations now. We're coordinated through the Office of Diversity, Health, Equity, and Inclusion at Bay State Health, also known as Public Health. And the Alliance is the entire western part of the state of Massachusetts. It's a broad-based coalition of folks who are working collectively towards digital equity for all people. Go ahead to the next slide. And we too, like your coalition, was formed in the response to a crisis during 2020. My predecessor, Dr. Frank Robinson, convened organizations in 3 of the 4 counties that we now work in response to COVID-19. And we received some state and local funding to begin facilitating that regional response. And we started with just 30 community partners in the 3 counties, and now we've expanded to all 4 Western Mass counties and some of Central Mass in Worcester County as well. And then, of course, in 2024, we lost the federal funding from the Affordable Connectivity Program, which was rather devastating. We lost about $500,000 in funds and had to really pivot. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about both things that are important to our coalition from the beginning, things that are important now, and how we've pivoted. So we can go to the next slide. So I want to just first talk about our collective approach. We have several core foundational principles that apply to everything that we do. And the first one is the most important: people first. So we really center the solutions on people that are impacted by digital inequity. And so that means that we're going to folks in the community who they themselves have lived experience with digital inequities, and we're ground truthing our ideas. And we're using their experience as the basis to inform all of our co-design and our implementation of our programs. That's really important. It sometimes takes longer, but that is, for us, more important, that we get there together and that we start with asking people who have lived experience. Network-based, I'm going to talk a lot about network weaving today. The Alliance really recognizes that there are informal and formal networks that connect organizations and people in our region. And so we really look to find out, how do we coordinate these networks and use the wisdom and the connectivity of the networks for design and implementation. And then we want to use what already exists. So we're not really trying to reinvent the wheel. We'd prefer to expand or enhance existing capacity rather than build something new, although sometimes we have built new things, and we've done that collaboratively, collectively, with folks who are really living the question and living the work, building those, co-designing those programs. Next slide, please. So this is a map of where we are, just so you can locate us. I happen to know a little bit about Florida. I lived in Florida for one summer when my aunt and uncle were living down there, and lived in the Fort Myers area, and visited Sanibel Island. What a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. So I hope I'll get to come in person and see some of you folks at some point. But this is our community. So we are, as you can see, the western part of the state. Everyone will say, "Oh, you're near Boston." No, you might as well say you're from Miami. It's the same kind of dynamic. Boston is really far to the east, and we are rural. We're closer to Vermont than we are to Boston. We're closer to New Hampshire and New York and Connecticut. And culturally, we're very different from Boston. The cities are the eastern cities are a little more go. It's where you get the accent. We don't really have that accent as much out here in the western part of the state. So we serve these 83 communities currently, and there's 105 total municipalities in our region, and we're serving 83 of them. My hope would be that we get to all of them eventually. But it's really a diverse coalition. It's community-based organizations, it's funders, it's municipalities, it's libraries, housing, healthcare organizations, councils on aging, United Ways, businesses, internet service providers, community colleges, workforce development, and community media centers. Next slide, please. So this really gives you a sense of what that ecosystem looks like. I think for me coming in, I was coming from Eastern Mass. I lived in Western Mass, but I didn't know the community like my predecessor did. And so I needed a map. I needed a visual that helped me to understand all of these interconnected networks. So we're kind of the hub. And then all these folks on the hub are different network. And so we really see us as the clearinghouse and the facilitative leader. Go ahead to the next slide. And you can look at these in more detail at any time. This will be available to everybody. Core at our belief is that complex problems cannot be solved by one person or one organization alone. Just like the sign I saw this morning, nothing great is made alone. We really live that and embody that. So we think our job is to harness the nodes and the connections of our network for greater impact towards our purpose. Just yesterday, we had our monthly meeting. It was such an interesting meeting. We're at a new chapter. We're entering a new chapter of our existence. We're talking about long-term sustainability. We're developing working groups. And I facilitated, but I was not, I really stepped back and was listening to all of the connections, making connections with each other, understanding how they might support each other's work. Go ahead to the next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about network weaving here. And a partner in that work is the Interaction Institute for Social Change. You can look them up. They are incredible. They have really taught me a lot. I had done a lot of coalition work early on in my career, and then not as much for the last 20 years when I've been working as an executive director in community television. So what we've learned really from the Interaction Institute is how to teach a methodology called facilitative leadership. And it's not just facilitation and it's not just leadership. It's really thinking about how we can make collective impact and how we can pull folks who are quiet to step in and those who are not to step back, but also thinking about how we coach each other, how we co-regulate maybe on some level, and how we can co-design together. And so we've been teaching folks in our network how to do this, as well as our Alliance Facilitative Leadership team. So I love this quote from them, because if you're just looking for what's directly in front of you, and I'm a very linear person, despite being a creative person, I'm very practical. But sometimes that limits my view. If I'm only looking at what's in front of me, I can't see what's emerging around me. And I think in this work, it's been so important for us to really listen. So yesterday during our coalition meeting, listening to things as they were coming up, reflecting that back to folks so that everyone has a shared understanding of what's actually happening here and what's kind of emerging through our networks. Go ahead to the next slide. Also, I love this one. I think in my life, I've done my fair share of trying to control chaos. Haven't we all? You can't control chaos. And the more you try, the more difficult it gets, right? It slips through your fingers, especially when you're doing co-design work, coalition work, but you can find patterns. You can look for patterns and you can look for the ones that will bring the group positive change. Go ahead to the next slide. So what are networks? We think of that ecosystem that I showed you is nodes and links on each of those networks. So there's a network of libraries. We have about 25 libraries that are all working together, but also come to the Alliance monthly meetings and participate in the co-design and sharing what's going on in their communities. We have councils on aging that are their own network, but also are interacting with the other nodes on the network as well. There's a pattern of flow of resources, information, nutrients, if you will. And there are people and organizations that are linking to achieve collective goals and producing net gains. One of the things I love about the network weaving approach and facilitative leadership is that it's not, I've been involved in other coalitions where it's been very much focused on coalition building related to consensus. And this isn't necessarily, it's not consensus. It is thinking about what our shared objectives are and how we're going to productively move forward towards that, while also making sure that we are throughout that process listening, reflecting back, listening, reflecting back. But the goal is that we want to produce net gains together. Next slide, please. And I love this because there's actual research that proves that network weaving is effective. It's effective because we can't build anything great by ourselves, but it's also effective because it increases our capacity, all of us. It helps us to adapt. It helps us to get out of our silos and think differently, to act as catalysts and sparks for each other. It enables us to have a broader reach inside smaller ecosystems and also to the greater world beyond. It helps us to more rapidly disseminate information and to communicate more effectively when we have shared objectives and shared goals. And we're talking about that and we know what those are and we know each other and we have relational power and relational capacity and capital together. And it builds resilience. We can withstand cuts to our funding because we are working together. And that's, for us, yesterday was this, after 6 months of doing a ton of advocacy work around some shared objectives, and I'll talk about those soon, we are more resilient because of having done that work together. There's more people who have stepped into leadership roles. And so I'm really excited about that resiliency that we've gained and how we're going to use it towards our shared objectives and outcomes. Next slide, please. So things I've already mentioned, but we amass power when we're together. We're not alone. It can be really lonely when you are a leader inside of a silo or you are working inside of a silo. I love that this model allows me to be with people who inspire and support me as I'm inspiring and supporting them. We're learning about topics that are relevant to all of our work and to our individual work. We're gathering context of a changing environment that helps shape all of our work. We're learning new tools and skills and tactics that support our work. We're being affiliated with something that supports reputation, recognition. We're doing things together as an alliance that we could not do individually as a library in a 100-person town, but we can do with a 200-member coalition working across 4 counties. It amplifies all of our voices and our efforts and our collective voice. It gives us access to new funding and to other joint resources. It provides new partnerships and projects and activities. Sometimes, as I'm sure all of you know, getting people in a room together, we find out things about each other that we wouldn't have known if we just hadn't made space and time for that conversation to happen. And sometimes we don't always know what the conversation is going to be, but we get inside of that space together and we're able to have a conversation that leads to things that we may never have imagined had we not had that initial conversation or provided space for all of the voices in that conversation to come to the table and be heard. Innovation and potential for less work and better work. Next slide. So this is from the Interaction Institute, and I love this. And so I will admit that there have been times in my life, especially because I came from the tech startup world, where boy, rock stardom, that's like, I don't even have to lift up some of those people, but that is like celebrated. The world celebrates individual achievements and productivity. It isn't about being a rock star. And I hate it when people say, oh, you're such a rock star, you're such a champion. It is definitely not about any one thing I did. It is about our collective actions and success. I'm just a contributor to that. And I think I've always said that during my career, but I think in this collective work that we've done over the last 2 years, I finally really felt it in my body. And some of it is not feeling alone. I mean, benefits to me personally, right? Not feeling alone, not having to carry the whole load. Sometimes as an executive director, I had felt like that, or board of directors made me feel like that, or I made myself feel like that, or my perfectionism and things that I wanted to do in the world got in the way of me being able to really truly collaborate in the way that I think we are now, letting go of rigidity and control. Whew, that's a tough one, right? Um, Flexibility, adaptability, saying yes and a lot. Instead of valuing someone's credentials. And I know I'm in Massachusetts, and boy, the fact that I had a fellowship at MIT that opens doors, but that shouldn't be the only thing that opens doors. Valuing contributions from everyone, no matter your credentials. Building resilience and redundancy as a group, scaling out and down, customizing as opposed to just scaling up all the time. Permission and perfection creates instead self-organization and emergence in a facilitative leadership model. Focusing on the center versus bringing the margins in so that we really are hearing, amplifying, and modifying our message and our strategy based on everyone, having everyone really at the table and thinking about who's not at the table, making sure that they're there as well. And the fear and scarcity mindset, I will say in the last 9 months, especially, I have heard a lot of that from folks. And it is tough to, when you're facing funding cuts, to think about how do we think about things from an abundance, from agape kind of love for each other, and knowing that we may have to consolidate, we may have to scale down, we may have to customize our approaches in order to make sure that the entire community and our entire coalition is going to be able to survive and thrive and be able to grow in the long run. Next slide. So I'll talk a little bit more specifically about our collective approach. You're probably pretty familiar with a lot of these. We uh, provide affordable internet and public Wi-Fi. We have a number of sites all over the country, all over the counties. We do devices distribution and refurbishment. We do digital literacy, and we have trusted local guides that are digital navigators. Next slide. And I'll talk a little about those DNs, as we call them, which I know you guys really value as well. This is a slide that I made for municipalities. We had a convening. We also do a lot of convening. So we brought together 55 municipalities in our region to talk about how we could help support them as they were building out their digital equity, digital access plans. So everything from training digital navigators to providing digital navigators kind of as circuit riders to go to their communities. We have towns of 100 people and towns of 250,000 people in our region. So really big cities, really urban areas, and really, really, really rural areas. So we created 413 Cares, which is it's part of Find Help, if you're familiar with the Find Help model. So we have a digital equity services page there where referrals can happen both to and from community-based organizations. We also do partnerships on grants and advocacy with all of our members as well. Next slide. So this just gives you a sense of some of our alliance services and programs. So facilitating networks, the digital navigator services, the hotspot distribution, and the 413 Cares. You can see just some sample organizations that we've been serving in the last 2 years. Go ahead to the next slide. So this is our impact highlights slide just for 2024. 2025 is not yet over, so we're excited, but you can see 2023 to 2025 are running total for the impact that we've had. Now, this is only the folks we're tracking. So we have not tried to track all 200 organizations yet. I'm hoping next year we're going to get to that because they are tracking their own numbers. But this is just with the folks that were funded through our grant. We had 25 grantees throughout all 4 counties through the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, MBI. And we're very grateful for their partnership. We received first initially a $5 million grant and then an additional $1 million last year. We'll be doing this work until November of next year. And hopefully beyond that, we are doing fundraising and looking for resources to continue this work, both collectively and individually. But these are our numbers for 2024, and you can really see that there was a big shift that happened away from just digital skills programs and into digital navigation services. So when ACP got cut federally, most of the organizations that were our grantees that we were working with and our coalition partners really were just signing people up for internet service and weren't really in a situation where they were trained to become digital navigators. And so that process for us started really in February or March of 2024 and has continued. And we've built a really robust digital navigation program because of that. So that's why that number is pretty high. We've given out 915 in 2024, but we're actually up to 2,333 computer devices distributed. We've given out 338 hotspots. We have this year done 3,304 digital navigation sessions. And then you can see the public Wi-Fi locations. We've actually set up 11 grants, and we're hoping to do another 10 this year. And I think we might surpass that. There's a lot of organizations who need better high-speed broadband and some support for that at their community-based organizations, especially in the rural areas. And we've given out grants to over 68 organizations. Go ahead to the next slide. So these are our digital navigators. They are the beating heart and frontline workers. We call them the community health workers of technology. One of our DNs coined that. There's a great video here about 3 of our DNs and partner organizations. And 2 of those folks in that, Lewis and La Cherie, are now and have been digital navigators. So they have lived experience with digital inequity, and they got training from some of our partners, Tech Foundry, workforce training, and then were able to become digital navigators themselves and now are working in the communities that they are from. And all of these folks are working in the communities that they are from. So this was 31-person facilitative leadership training that we had last year with the Interaction Institute for Social Change. It was incredible. We have our congressperson represented there, our mayor, our state representatives, and Comcast, who donated 30 computers to all of the digital navigators that were in attendance. And I think the story is a really lovely one. So I encourage you to watch that when you get a chance, about their experience and how they came to the work and why they think it's important. Next slide. So really out of this work in 2024, and I know you know this, digital navigators are consistently providing holistic and individualized support through repeated interactions. Go ahead to the next slide. And that was when ACP got cut. I'm sure a lot of you realize this too. That was one of the biggest things that happened that was challenging to us. One of the biggest challenges, I would say, is that the trust that we had built in our communities by having all of these community-based organizations and grantees and coalition partners doing the work, when the funding went away for affordable internet, a lot of folks gave up. And so we really had to work hard to our community, with our community partners, to make sure that people felt like they could trust us, that we were going to provide other options for them, that we were going to stay with them, that we were going to stick it out, that just because federal funding was going away, we weren't going away. So these are some of our client success stories. There's some really beautiful stories here that you can take a minute when you have time to look through. Our digital navigators actually read one of these at our press conference. We've also had resident-led press conferences about ACP, about some of the advocacy work that we're doing. But some amazing stories. I'm sure you guys have them as well. Go ahead to the next slide, and then we'll probably go quickly past that one as well, because it's also stories that you might want to read when you have time. Yeah, great. So all of this organizing work that we did to really move our coalition members, partners from the Affordable Connectivity Program into digital navigation really led us to, at the end of 2024, decide to write legislation. I'd never written legislation before. I had no idea how you even did that. But we wrote legislation. We sent it to our representative, and she submitted it on our behalf and has been an incredible ally to move this forward. And this idea came from the digital navigators. They said, it feels like I might be the first person to be let go when the funding cuts hit. It feels like maybe my boss doesn't totally understand the value and the importance of this day-to-day work that I'm doing one-on-one with our residents and our clients and our community members. I think, we want to amplify that somehow. We need more training. And so we had been giving them training. We meet monthly with our digital navigator network. They share ideas, they work together, they help each other out. We have digital navigators from one county go all the way down to the other county to help teach a class, to help hand out devices. We have a group of them all going together 2 hours away to go pick up 500 computers that we're going to then bring back to our area and then be able to distribute. So there's a lot of partnership happening inside of our meetings and also outside of meetings that really led us to training our digital navigators to become advocates. And something really amazing happened in this, because I think, sometimes the person who has that legislative experience, as I did, not to introduce a bill, but to do advocacy work, sometimes they end up going to the hearing and speaking and doing all the public speaking. In this case, I really stepped back. I had to, because the digital navigators, their voice needed to be heard, and they came up with this idea. And so what was amazing is that throughout the hearings, we had a hearing on our affordable internet bill, which you can go to the next slide for that. We designed an affordable internet bill with partners across the state, really led by Mass Law Reform and Virginia Benson, our partner at MLRI, for a $15 a month internet bill based on the New York bill. And now Texas, Maryland, California is pausing theirs, but they're going to come back with another one, and Massachusetts are all looking at a $15 a month internet option. And so we had a hearing for that in May. We co-designed a statewide digital equity day in June. We got 93 people in the room at the State House, which is unbelievable. And for Western Mass, we're like the neglected part of our state. Folks in Boston, they just think everything evolves around Boston, right? And they would tell you that too. But we are often forgotten, because we're so rural, people don't understand how far it is from one place to another. They don't take into account our needs as communities out here. And so I think for us to really take a lead from the western part of the state and get our Eastern Mass folks on board was an incredible experience for all of our digital navigators and our coalition partners. So we had 93 state legislative aides, mostly the aides, in the room. We had 3 bills that we were supporting, these 2 and another one on telehealth, that 93 people showed up for at the State House. So that was really an incredible experience for our digital navigators. They had done a lot of the work creating the talking points and the flyers and the folders. And then we had a hearing on our bill, and we had 17 people show up, digital navigators coming and talking to state reps and educating the state reps on what the hoops are that people are really jumping through, because the state reps think that everyone has a phone with unlimited data, that a smartphone. And so the digital navigators were really able to share their lived experience, their own and their clients. And that made a really big impact. One of our state senators that is the chair of the committee, I said, how do you think it went? And he said, well, you brought guns to a knife fight. So I don't love that analogy necessarily, but the violence of it, but I love the fact that our DNs really stepped into that role, and they're going to continue in that role. Go ahead to the next slide. So when we had our meeting yesterday, we talked a lot about the future, about things that we want to do, how we might organize working groups and work together. We are additionally, the DNs are co-designing. They're working with the Interaction Institute for Social Change to co-design the first ever statewide digital navigators convening. We're calling it the Mass DNA, Massachusetts Digital Navigators Alliance. We'll also be, of course, working on the bill. We have, I think, another couple of weeks before we'll hear whether it gets out of committee and then goes to the floor of the House to create the first ever statewide credentialing program. We're working with partners like NDIA, our partners in Pennsylvania, and other folks who are considering excuse me, statewide credentialing programs. Just heard yesterday about North Carolina, really excited to see what they're doing. They're working with their community colleges on that. And I think if we can help provide boots on the ground information, and digital navigators can co-design that credentialing program, it could be a really effective way to amplify the important role that we know our DNs play, and help them really think about how to build power and organize in their own communities around creating change. So we're also adding a piece of that around civic engagement, around how do you use the media, how do you talk and meet with your advocates and your politicians so that you can create policy change, because we want them to have those tools. And we saw that when given those tools, when they'd gone through those trainings, they really stepped up and represented their communities in ways that most of them, I don't think any of them had ever done before. So we're hoping to do more of that at the statewide convening. We hope to have a healthcare coalition that will be presenting. We'll have other states coming as well and talking about their work and how we might co-design and coordinate trainings together. We'll be developing curriculum. And we know that healthcare will be a really strong place, home for digital navigators, but we expect them to be in other organizations and even in businesses as well. So we'll just go to the next slide. And we might go quickly. Just to give you a sense of, these are some of the convenings that we're having regularly. We also have a Discord group, Community Media Digital Navigator Network. You can go ahead and look at these on your own time. Go ahead to the next slide. I just wanted to share this. We had a live graphic artist design this at our first ever convening. We had 85 people at that from all 4 counties. And I just love the beauty of this design. This is on the left where we were before when we first started. This is where we were on the right, out working with Black veterans in Springfield, in an urban area, giving them laptops and showing them how to use Wi-Fi at public locations. Go ahead to the next slide. And these are ways that we ask people to engage with us. And this is the 413 Cares. And there's some ways that you can get engaged and some articles that you can read here. I know Patterson Foundation is going to provide a lot of this after the fact. Go ahead to the next slide. And I think this is my thank you slide. So I just want to thank the Patterson Foundation and everybody who's joined us today. I hope this is helpful or acts as a catalyst to the work, the amazing work that I know you're all doing in your communities. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what you're doing in communities, how you're doing it, how you're moving out of silos and working more collectively and in coalition with each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kathy. while people are coming on screen, please, we're going to come on and take a photo right now, but and start thinking about your questions you might put in the chat for Kathy so we can do a little Q&A. Feel free to start loading those in. But Kathy, as you were talking, it felt like we were living the actual day-to-day work that the Alliance does with the navigators, with all the work that you do. And I think sometimes we get caught up in all of the other important things like fighting the big fight for the bill and all of that, but really appreciate your talking about how it works on a day-to-day basis, because collectively that's what we all need to be doing and continuing to be doing. So let's all come on screen real quick so that Kiera can help us take a group photo of this great group with our great presenter. So any of you guys that are off screen, if you feel like you can really come on real quick, we'd appreciate it. Here comes some folks. We'll give you a second while you're loading in your questions to chat, etc. All right, just a couple more minutes. Well, a couple more seconds, that is. All right. Okay, Kiera, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, I'm going to start the countdown as everyone gets ready or turn their cameras on and position themselves. So in 3, 2, 1, smile. Sorry, I'm going to have to do it again. I was having technical difficulties. This time it will work. We find that at DA4 we have the most interesting technical challenges. And again, this time I'll do it for real. In 3, 2, 1. And yes, I got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, that allowed some more people to come on screen. So no worries, that little technical glitch. So we'd love to have some Q&A here with Kathy, with you here. We have a lot of folks online, and we also have some folks that had sent in some questions prior to today. So I'm going to kick one off that we received from one of the participants when they signed up. And that's really goes back to what you were just talking about with the coalition, though. How did you balance the diverse priorities of 200 organizations while you're still moving forward with this unified strategy for digital equity?
There's so many ways I could answer that question. I think the first part is logistically, right? So having regular meetings, and we talked a lot about this yesterday because we're discussing, do we change our meeting structure? Do we have an hour and a half meeting? How do we get people to come? Can the senior aging adults folks come because they're serving lunch at their centers? So maybe we need to do it a little earlier. So logistics is a huge part of coalition work, right? Making sure that we are finding times that work for everybody, that we're approaching our ways of soliciting input in a way that makes sure that we are hearing from everybody. So I think that's sort of the foundational level. And then I'm not going to lie, there's conflicts sometimes, because conflicts are part of life, right? We don't all agree all the time. And there isn't an expectation that we agree all the time. And we can conflict, and we can still, at the end of the day, say, all right, this doesn't align. This does align. Here's how we can move forward. What are the next steps that we're going to move forward? One of the facilitative leadership techniques that I think our digital navigators really enjoyed learning, and it's been helpful for all of us, is we're not waiting to get consensus. We're not waiting to get consensus. We are building agreement about shared objectives. And I think that's really important. We aren't trying to make everybody feel good all the time about everything. We know there's going to be conflict. We know that we're not going to always have the same shared objectives, and that there's space allowed for that. And we are articulating that very clearly and making sure that people know you can disagree. We disagree as a team. I encourage my team members to tell me if they don't think that we're going the right direction. And then we come up with where there is alignment, and we talk about what are the next steps to moving forward. And I really think that is a skill that our team through facilitative leadership has really developed, and that we model, which is how do you get to where you want to go collectively? And part of it is letting go of my own or our own as a leadership team. You know, we have ideas about how we want to do things. We have ideas about what the coalition should do. We talked through at least at 2 meetings before we even brought up yesterday, what time do you guys want to meet, right? We spend that time talking as a group so that when we actually present that to the group, it goes as well as it can, and there's space allowed for discernment and discussion and disagreement. And then we move people along to the next step and say, we've heard this. I hear that there's not agreement. Here's what I do see aligned. Here's what I do see shared objectives around. So in the amount of time that we have, that is probably the things that I would prioritize is making sure that your facilitative leadership tools are in place so that you're able to go through those steps that I just mentioned.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. We're going to share some additional announcements with the group after this question. So we hope you'll hang on here for just a little bit longer. But we've got a question in the chat from Jennifer to ask you a little bit about, you mentioned that Comcast donated money and computers. What kind of role does the business play in this work? And what are you doing to engage more business in creating digital equity?
That's a great question. I come from a small business background. I worked for an internet service provider for 10 years as their senior development staff. And so I have a passion for workforce development in particular. So we've also worked with, in addition to Comcast, and Comcast has been an incredible partner actually in this work, in digital equity work and in digital navigation in helping build that field. But also Mass Mutual, which is an insurance company based in our area. It's I think the second largest employer. My employer, the Bay State Health, is the largest employer in the region. We are part of 25 businesses across the state that work collaboratively together to enhance and support business. So I think from our perspective in healthcare, public health and digital equity being a social determinant of public health is important. I think for businesses like Comcast and even the smaller ISPs, there's some obvious ROIs for them, right? In terms of having users who understand the tools, who are using the tools, who are staying loyal to them because they understand and value those tools. And then other businesses like Mass Mutual Foundation, getting them involved. I think with the digital navigation credentialing program, especially, there's a really amazing opportunity to get business involved because they understand the value. And as somebody who worked in business, if I don't have technical support people who've been well trained, who know how to handle, especially in healthcare, know how to handle confidential information, know how to build trust and rapport with clients, I'm not going to have as good ROI on selling products to my customers, on making sure that people understand how to use the online tools available. So I do think there's an obvious, but sometimes you have to articulate that to some businesses because they may not always see that connection because they don't see the problem. So you have to ask customers, you have to ask clients, you have to get that data for them. Even internally, I have to do that so that I can make sure that the decision makers really understand why it's valuable to us to have really everybody fully participating in the digital world. And then they start to tie that to their bottom line, to their financial bottom line, to their ROIs. So that would be in a nutshell what I would say about that.
That makes a lot of sense, especially where we're at today. Everybody stay on. We're gonna jump back into the presentation real quick and share some important future information with you all, and some part of this change that you all asked for in this webinar series was how to continue the conversation. And so we created a digital access for all LinkedIn group, and you've got a little QR code here you can scan, and when you get your email, follow up with it. You can also we'd love to have you join the LinkedIn group. We have a little over 130 people that are currently in it, but it's a place where some dialogue can continue. And it's been an important factor in bringing us all together kind of across the country. So please join that LinkedIn group. So that's one way we can continue that. In our next slide, though, we want to talk a little bit about what's happening going forward. Our next webinar series, number 2, on October 9th, is with Bruce Clark. And you can read about Bruce here, Digital Inclusion Project Manager for the Center for Digital Equity at Queens College. It's going to be another exciting effort, just like Kathy's was. And I also want to mention, while we're recording this particular session, we're also going to be doing a podcast with Kathy next week that we will be using and replaying to folks during October, which is, we've dubbed October Suncoast Digital Inclusion Month, but it also piggybacks with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance's week of digital inclusion, which is October 6th through the 10th. So I think it's important for y'all to know that, while we're providing this connection with Kathy today, and we have Bruce coming up, you'll be able to also go back and share some of these things with your colleagues, with your friends, and bring some more people on board to this particular subject matter. So, all right. With that, we're going to jump back into being able to get some more questions from Kathy. We understand some folks might need to move on, but we want to continue this conversation right now and make sure that folks have a chance to hear more from Kathy. So if you'd like to pose a question, not in the chat, you want to raise your hand, we'll be watching for that as well. All right. I do have one, Kathy, from another participant. So how do you ensure that marginalized or hard to reach communities aren't left behind in this digital equity effort? A lot of people have forgotten that there's still this issue where people aren't connected, and especially when you went over what's happened with the Affordable Connectivity Program. How do you guys ensure that?
This is a huge question, right? I mean, I think, our biggest strategy has been people first. Absolutely. So we are working with partners who are working in the front lines with folks who have been underserved, who have been marginalized, who have not had access to these resources. And so I think, having the right partners, making sure everyone that needs to be there is at the table. We also work directly with a People's Coalition that is residents in Holyoke and Springfield who are have a very they're very strong about how they approach the topic. So I'll give you an example of how we put people first. When the ACP press conference happened, all of the politicians wanted to talk and called me and were like, we want to talk about digital equity and why we are against this. And I said, you're welcome to come. We would love to have your voice. We would love to have you be an advocate. But the people who are going to speak first are all of the folks with lived experience from this People's Coalition that's part of our coalition. They're speaking first. And, they all respected that, thankfully. And folks with lived experience, their voices were heard, and they're the ones who got press. They got television coverage, they got radio coverage, they got print coverage. That is how we do everything. The one on the eastern side of the state, and not to disparage my fellow Massachusetts residents, but their tone was really different. All of the Congress people spoke, all of the attorneys spoke, and ours was really people first always. And so I think that's all in the short amount of time, that's probably the most important thing I could say about how do you make sure that our communities that have lived experience and need these services are always being heard.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you make me think about, talking about how you did it, and in Massachusetts, in that western part, and all of these partners that you're seeing here, many of them are Florida participants and partners, let's ask you a little bit about what practical steps, like what are the practical steps for starting to scale like a similar coalition in digital equity, here on the local level?
I would say, if you're starting from scratch, getting folks in a in-person room together. And I'm a big proponent of doing work online because we're doing regional work, and sometimes that's just easier for everyone logistically. However, having a convening where we were all in the same room together and could have a conversation, could get to know each other, could build the relational values and relationships between each other, that was huge. And then doing it again with our digital navigation network so that they were in the same room together, learning together. I was learning right alongside with our People's Coalition members, volunteers, peer navigators. We were all learning something together. It really evened the playing field, and it took away what sometimes gets imposed on us in terms of hierarchical or all the things that were in that left column of that slide that I showed, and moved us away from individualism, moved us away from being siloed and into a collaborative process. I think having a facilitator who's skilled at that is really important. For all of our convenings, we had a skilled facilitative leadership from Interaction Institute. And I think having regular meetings where you are defining shared objectives as a group. It's not any one person. I'm not setting the agenda. It is our group. We do some prep work in advance so that if no one has any ideas, there's an idea to get everybody around. But I think building that relationship between each other first is what makes a strong coalition, and make sure that there's shared objectives that aren't coming from one person, that are really coming from the coalition. That was so great yesterday as my recent example, where we had planned what we wanted to have happen, and the agenda totally time adjusted to whatever the group wanted, and we didn't cover everything that we had intended to. And that's you've got to be okay with that. You've got to let go of control. And then within that, there's also folks who will say, I only have an hour, you guys were all over the place, we need to know what the plan is. You have to address that too, because you want it to be functional, you want it to be working, you want it to feel productive, you want people to come back. So we also did, after the first year, we did a survey and an evaluation, and that was incredible, because what we saw reflected back is that 78% of our members talk to each other outside of coalition meetings. To me, that was the biggest win we could have, that we had built that relationship, we had built that reputation together, that they felt comfortable working with each other and building things on their own. And that has to be part of it. We have to be sustainable without us as a leadership team being there.
That's awesome. I think you validated for our local region where we have the Suncoast Digital Navigator Network, which Maribel Bartitas, our consultant here for TPF, helps run with the 8 organizations and the over 30 digital navigators that have been trained here that keep together and keep out. What you're talking about is really, it's in alignment with how this region is working, but on a larger scale for the state of Florida. You've given us some hope and some ideas about how to do some things. Thank you for being here today. Want to really appreciate everything. Want everybody to know that Kathy's very reachable if you need to reach out to her for anything. She'll be joined our LinkedIn network. We can use more conversation there. Just a reminder to sign up for the October 9th webinar if you haven't, which will feature Bruce Clark. But again, in support of October 2025, the Suncoast Digital Network Month, Digital Inclusion Month, there'll be activities that you'll be seeing come out each day. Many of our partners will be sharing what they're doing. So all of our digital navigator organizations and others, and you'll be able to see this fantastic Zoom webinar again and Kathy's podcast. So thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being here. We appreciate your time very much. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.